about them Irish?
I can't take it anymore. I need a national championship.
This is the Four Horsemen podcast.
What the hell is going on? This is the Four Horsemen podcast, your favorite Notre Dame football podcast. I'm Dylan. I am joined by Steve and P-Wagon, and that's what we're going to talk about. What is going on? The last time I looked at the news, we were joining a conference for the first time in our 130-year history, and then all the conferences decided to stop playing college football. So that's the extent of what I know. What we're going to do today is talk about it, see where our gap in knowledge is, and then just kind of discuss what's going on next season. So, Steve, P-Wagon, take it away.
Yeah, I guess what we could do is just kind of crowdsource the collective knowledge we have to try to figure out what the hell is happening, just as we all are, coincidentally, with the virus at large, as state by state, country by country, the entire world just trying to figure out the coronavirus. So, we'll get into scheduling, we'll get into conferences, and we'll even give a little bit of update on the team at practice, some unfortunate injuries. But a lot on the docket today. P-Wagon, let us know your thoughts to start.
Everything sucks.
And you are kind of our guy. Sorry to interrupt, but you are kind of our guy on the inside track here, being connected to the NCAA in one capacity or another, and specifically athletics. So if there's any sort of insight you can provide that you're comfortable with sharing, by all means, take it away. If you're not comfortable, obviously don't have to.
Well, legally speaking, everything sucks. Really, as of 5 p.m. today, Notre Dame's going offline, all virtual for 2 weeks because college kids have to go and party. And that's where we're at. You're trying to contain a cat trying to eat some fish. That's really where it comes down to. They're putting these kids in this environment, and they're cats in a koi pond. You have all the fish in the world, and the cats are going to go get it. You can't contain 18 to 22-year-olds and let them make their own good decisions. For the most part, no one made good decisions between 18 and 22. Four Loko was a thing.
That's a fact. I don't think I made a good decision until I was 25.
Some would say I'm still waiting to do that. And so just going off of that, you're seeing right now with kids going back to school what kids are going to do. You can't bubble them. And from what I'm hearing, October is going to be a very bad month for colleges all around the country. It's flu season. They think that's when the second wave's going to hit again. And I just don't know what's going to happen with this football season. Are we going to get 3-4 games in and then have to call it because of COVID? That could be a thing. That you just don't know what's going to happen. As of recording right now, the Big Ten, done. Pac-12, done. Most of the MAC, the WAC, all those small conferences, done. The ACC, SEC, and Big 12 are the three conferences remaining, plus Army and Navy, but they're already in the bubble anyway, maybe Air Force. So looking at that, you're either going to have to bubble the players if you want a season and send everyone else home to do virtual learning, which then calls into question amateurism, or you're going to cancel full season and say, hey, let's pick up in the spring. Those are the only two options right now. And from the conversations I've had, no one knows what's going to happen.
Well, I think that's really a good point. Something you brought up on our last podcast is you were ahead of the curve here. You said there was no way the season was going to happen. And how does the season even happen if half the conferences aren't playing? How can you legitimately have a football season that's both regarded legitimately as a competition and is even remotely fair if only, 50 teams of the 140 are playing. I don't really get that. And another thing I'd like to ask, actually, is a country thing. You guys are always asking me questions about Canada. I got one about America. These college students at Notre Dame went back to school 10 days ago, roughly?
8 days ago.
Is that a normal thing? Because that's a month too early for Canada. I don't go back to school till September.
That seems extraordinarily early. I mean, just to quickly talk about my school, Johnson and Wales in Providence, Rhode Island, we would go back maybe the last week of August. Usually it was the last couple days, kind of bleeding right into September. So that's my experience.
So I'm also at Rhode Island school, Salve Regina. What up? We went back late because Rhode Island's a tourist state. So that's Rhode Island. Other schools do go back early, but they're having kids come back even earlier now to complete a 14-day mandatory quarantine. That didn't work.
Failed.
And just to speak on your other point real quick, so colleges will come back in August. August is usually the time. A lot of football players will report even earlier, but they wanted this 2-week quarantine period to happen so they could get the testing done and all that shit. Talking about your other point about how a national championship could occur, Division I-A and 1AA rugby have something called a fall national championship and a spring championship. So you're not really a national champion, you're a seasonal champion. So if that were to happen, you could see a fall champion come out of the ACC, Big East, SEC, whatever. And then the spring, if the Pac-12 and Big Ten decide to play, you could have them decide a champion. Rugby doesn't do this, but football could, in theory, have the fall play the spring at the end of the season to decide who the national champion would be, in theory. So that's at least what I know from my sport, what they do.
Well, that's really confusing.
There's a sport to learn.
Let's get into the big thing, the big news that came out first. We'll kind of walk through the timeline here because so much happened. We find out that Notre Dame is a member of the ACC. They're taking us in for a 10-game season where we will be eligible for the conference championship. I just want to get your guys' thoughts, and our listeners tweet at us, message us. What the hell was going through your mind when you see that Notre Dame is joining a conference?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It made the season easier. The strength of schedule went down, having to play a full ACC roster or whatever. Western Michigan getting eliminated, so Notre Dame's down to 9 games right now, which is unfortunate. But at the same time, you're seeing an easier schedule, which helps our argument of being independent. And then you get to play Clemson at Notre Dame, and then Clemson again for the ACC championship. Give me Trevor Lawrence twice, and we'll beat him 3 times. Steve?
Yeah, right there with you, just buzzing through really quickly. Duke.
Win.
What's up?
I'm just
win.
Win.
Yeah, sorry. I thought you said wait. I apologize. So Duke.
Win.
Wake Forest.
Win.
Florida State.
Win.
Louisville.
Win.
Pittsburgh.
Win.
Georgia Tech.
Win.
Clemson.
Win.
Boston College.
Double win.
Fuck you, Joel Djokovic. North Carolina.
Win.
And Syracuse.
Win.
All right, so that's the schedule as everything stands right now. Obviously, Western Michigan dropped off. I think it would be unique if Navy is one of the teams that are willing to play. Why can't we just add Navy? Make it work logistically. We should be able to. But yeah, you are exactly correct. Our strength of schedule went way down. I think, honestly, the reason why the Pac-12 canceled is because USC are cowards and didn't want to lose for like an 11th straight year to us. So they're pieces of shit. I I initially I did enjoy the fact that we did join a conference. Not that I don't want to do it permanently. I'm definitely in favor of independence for a myriad of reasons, all valid and all great in my humble opinion. But yeah, it does feel like an excellent chance to just absolutely troll the college football world by essentially just in this one freak incident, joining a conference, blowing through, winning all 10, going to the title game, beating Clemson a second time to show that it's not a fluke, and then going into the playoff and then just beating everyone all over again. Like I am fucking confident, and I am pretty pumped if the season happens, and I'm sure that conversation is going to bleed its way into the podcast today. So a lot of emotions for all things considered, but I think it was a net excuse me, a net positive to hitch on to the ACC for this year 2020.
So I have an answer for why Navy can't really happen unless the ACC changes its policy. But the idea was every ACC member will get one out-of-conference game to schedule, but whoever you schedule has to be within a state that has another team that's associated with the ACC.
Oh, yeah, Maryland moved to the Big Ten.
Yes, so Maryland wouldn't count, but like, for example, like Boston University would count because, if even they have a football team, I don't know. They don't. But that's the only school I can think of off the top of my head because of their hockey team. But we could play South Carolina. We could play the Florida Gators.
We could play Georgia.
So those schools would work. P-Wagon brought up the best point was it's hilarious how our strength of schedule went down. It's a weaker schedule than what we already had. And that it's just so backwards. And I think the whole Notre Dame needs to join a conference thing. It's just people hate Notre Dame. It's nothing to do with, the integrity of the schedule or making us play a fair schedule because, look, our schedule got easier. If you genuinely cared about who Notre Dame played, they're better off independent. So that's a really good point there, too. And something I want to ask you guys is before the Pac-12 and Big Ten shut it down, it looked like because of our ACC deal that we would not play USC for the first time since the Second World War. I wanted to know your thoughts on that, on the possibility and now the almost certainty of not playing USC this year.
Good.
They're cowards. Yeah. Well, whatever. They would have. They've been giving us some games the last couple of years. They basically after us getting out to a 3-touchdown lead, they've come back and got it back to within one score with a couple minutes left, but we fended them off and with a couple of victories. So congratulations for losing by a close margin, USC. You guys are getting there. Pat on the back. You guys are doing great. A couple more years, maybe if you actually recruit an offensive line, then maybe you could actually compete with us. But until then, you guys just got to stay out on the West Coast and just play a little football game. So nobody cares about USC. There's just like another win on the schedule. I'm not even sure it would increase our strength of schedule if we were to play them. So it is what it is. It's fun for the rivalry. I want to actually go, assuming that the world can ever get back to normal. I would like to go next year, 2021, out to Los Angeles for Thanksgiving weekend. I think it'd be real cool to experience LA one time, possibly get stabbed by a homeless person, and then watch us kick the shit out of them in the Coliseum. So that's the extent of my thoughts on the subject. And Pete Wagon, I see a couple of chuckles out of you, my friend. Please let us know your thoughts.
I won't miss them. It's a fun rivalry, but beating up on them and not having to stress out about that game this year is really nice. It would have been a win. That's what it would have been. That's pretty much all I got there. Will I like to see them play again, and will they continue this rivalry? Yes. Will Notre Dame ever lose them again? Probably not. So FUSC, that's where I'm at.
I love the blind homerism.
It's not blind homerism when facts can back up what we're saying here.
Right. They'll never beat us again.
ever.
Not even. It will go on the longest winning streak in college football history is Notre
It'll
Dame
make the Navy win streak look pathetic. Let's put it that way.
Will dwarf Navy.
So what was it, 40-something years in a row, right? So that's going to bring us out to like 2060. That's when I'm going to be retiring.
Yeah. 40, 50 years. Why not? I'll cash on my 401k run.
This has been a surprisingly funny podcast so far.
Yeah, for as grim and as miserable and terrible as the world has been, we just laugh at the pain and we'll all get through it.
All right, I got a question for you. Obviously, it can't happen because we have an apparent clause in our contract with the ACC saying if we ever join a conference, it has to be the ACC. But what do you guys think about the Big Ten, specifically the Big Ten West? If Notre Dame would ever join, that would essentially be a conference title matchup every year because that division is really gross. Does the Big Ten excite you at all? Would you ever be interested in joining the Big Ten?
Yes. If Rutgers wasn't there. I like Penn State. I've been a James Franklin fan since he was at Vanderbilt. Wisconsin's always a fun team to watch. Really, Northwestern, they gave me a heart attack when they beat us by a field goal that one year. But they're fun mid-afternoon game. Michigan and Michigan State, I can take them or leave them. Would love to see that rivalry incorporated. Maryland, whatever. If you got rid of Rutgers and Maryland and added Notre Dame and IUPUI, because they're better than Rutgers, I would really entertain the fact that the Big Ten could be better for Notre Dame. They're Big Ten in hockey, so that's a thing. It's just weird that the ACC has roped Notre Dame in on that end. But I would entertain that.
Yeah, I'd be thrilled for it. I agree. You got to shed a little bit of weight there, just because they're just so piss poor. I mean, those are two basketball schools, basically. Rutgers is just a shit school. But yeah, I think they'd have to add someone who it would really. There has to be something enticing about joining. There has to be a big name that you're going to get that you're bringing over while dropping the other two in order to make it worthwhile. But if we ever do join a conference, then I'm significantly more in favor of the Big Ten than it would be the ACC. Now, first and foremost, I love our independence because I do want to play USC every year. I do want to play Navy every year, and obviously, there's a couple of teams throughout our rivalries that it's fun to be paired up with and get national spotlight. But if the perfect cards, or if basically we're forced into a situation where we need to join, definitely Big Ten over ACC.
Yeah, I assumed we all preferred independence, but just as we had to join a conference theoretical scenario.
Theoretically, can I just pull one up, not to interrupt you? I would love to join the MAC. Get Notre Dame on a Tuesday night. I would love that.
That would get some eyeballs.
It would free up my weekend so much. Go on.
Facts.
You might be the only person in the fan base who wants that.
Dylan, really quickly, because you're a savant of virtually everything. What would be an exciting team? Because I actually have finally thought of one in the back of my mind that would put enough quote unquote juice in my nuts, that's throwing in a little callback, that would attract me to the Big Ten rather. Sorry. Is there any team in the event that we were to join the Big Ten and were to shed some weight on the worst teams? Which team would really put some juice on you that would get you excited to join or even entice you to join?
Well, see, if I had to join a conference, because I like my independence, the reason I would like the Big Ten is because the division that we would go into is weak. You know what I mean? It's Wisconsin, Nebraska, who's a historically fantastic school that was in the Big 12, Minnesota, Northwestern, Purdue is the ones off the top of my head. You don't get Penn State, you don't get Ohio State, you don't get either the Michigan schools. You'd play them, on a rotating basis. But that's kind of what's attractive, is that you almost have like a guarantee into the conference title game. But if we were to theoretically talk about which other team that comes along with Notre Dame that would be exciting, Can we steal from the Big 12? Because Oklahoma would be really fun.
Okay. All right. That was interesting. So I don't ever foresee Oklahoma leaving, although you never know because either Oklahoma or Texas could in theory be cherry picked if there was some serious mega realignment like we actually saw a couple of years ago. The one that I thought of off the top of my head that was a little bit exciting was Country Roads. Take me home. West Virginia, I think would be a pretty exciting pick because they have a great offense, great atmosphere, great party school. They are typically fighting around the 30 to the 30 to top 15 kind of mark. They're usually 8-4, 9-3 in that neighborhood. So I think joining a bigger name conference, being a little bit closer to home, would be a great fit for them. Cut down on their travel costs while simultaneously giving some attraction to us with a historically pretty damn good program. So West Virginia would be it for me. I mean, obviously I'm taking Texas or OU if given the opportunity, but I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts or you either, P-Wagon, if you guys wanted to share.
You're thinking way too big. I have 2 words for you. Bo Pelini. Youngstown State. That is all.
You know who would work is
Northern Illinois. Pittsburgh.
Because they're in Pennsylvania, right? They have the rivalry with Penn State. They can kind of renew that yearly. They wouldn't be in the Western Division, but they would be an interesting team to bring over.
I did think of Pittsburgh. Also, a team that I thought of is not even in Division I. It would either be North Dakota State or Montana. Either of those 2 teams, if they were to jump up and join the Big Ten, I think would be really cool because if they could finally start getting, they would obviously start at a lower tier, but if they could start getting into some 4-star prospects, given the conference alignment, I think that would make them a pretty frisky program.
Steve, you got my brains thinking, and I got the perfect answer now. I needed your little jolt there. What about Appalachian State? I think that's perfect.
I love App State.
Beat Michigan every year. It's perfect.
App State's a good.
Youngstown State first, though.
All right, enough with the Big Ten. Let's talk about the Big Ten and the Pac-12. So once this whole Notre Dame conference thing gets settled, not long after that, you got 2 major things going on. You have the conferences rethinking college football, and you also have player union movements happening at the same time, and they want to play. But there's also this, recognize their labor thing. So college football is a complete mess right now. And in the midst of all this, we knew the Pac-12 was thinking of not playing football. And then all of a sudden the Big Ten announces we're not playing this year. And they're a major conference. We were just talking about them. What are your guys' thoughts? What's going through your mind when the Big Ten is out and then following the Pac-12?
I wasn't surprised about the Pac-12 because of the player unionization. That was happening before COVID really was a thing because they're trying to unionize to get player likeness money and all that stuff that I'm not educated on. So it wasn't a surprise to see them pull their full season. There was an event that I was going to go to in San Francisco back in April, and that got canceled because it was a hotspot. And that started getting my brain churning about the Pac-12 not being able to run this season. But when they did it and then the Big Ten did it, I thought it was unfortunate for college football. You want players to play. If you want to play and you understand the risk of playing, that you should do it. Every time I put on a helmet, the first day of helmets, my coach from youth all the way up to college made us take off our helmet, and there's a warning right on the back of every single helmet that says wearing this helmet is inherently dangerous, blah, 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 blah. And you have to read that because you understand football is a dangerous sport. Yes, it's a nationwide, a worldwide pandemic that's going on right now. But if there's ways to mitigate that risk by bubbling the teams, I think that the players had a point of wanting to play. I agree with the movement. I don't really want to speak here or there on that. But I definitely think they have a point of saying that they want to play. It's a matter of the directors and the higher-ups listening to them. Really, it's adults have to listen to the kids right now.
I'm a pro free market guy, therefore pro alienation of labor guy, and I'm pro private union guy. So in this particular instance, I would support the players unionizing so that way they can alienate their labor and essentially by alienating it make a profit off of their likeness or their labor, because inherently, yes, they're obviously paid in a scholarship. They get some perks. There's a whole bunch of benefits that they do get. 100%. Obviously, everyone would recognize that. But you have to understand, if I'm bringing in, if my value is, let's just say me and the 69 nice other guys on my team are worth a value of bringing in $100 million per year into any sort of organization, and we are paid $0 for it. Starts to sound like the S word, although obviously it's not. Like, I don't know. I would like to see some sort of union so that way they can fight for some rights. I also would like for them to play. Trevor Lawrence, that baby back bitch, is kind of leading the charge, but then our fearless leader and greatest quarterback to ever exist in all time, Ian Book, who has never made a mistake ever, and I've never been critical of, he is also hopping on, and he says he wants to play. And there's been a lot of great points where it's like, hey, you know what? I'll take my chances with the virus that has a 0.00 whatever % chance of killing me, as compared to going back home where I know my chances of getting into trouble or dying are significantly higher than that. So there's so many moving parts to it. It's almost impossible to come up with a cogent worldview or viewpoint on the topic without being a hypocrite in any sort of capacity, because at some point you are going to intersect and sound like a hypocrite, because it's literally like throwing spaghetti at the wall and trying to find the straight line. I don't even know if I just said anything that is coherent in any capacity. I was saying a bunch of stuff that I thought sounded smart, but that's kind of all the thoughts that came to my brain at once. And if anyone else wants to pick that apart or throw in your own input, please go for it. And we'll lead to the legal counsel here, which will be Dill.
Well, I was asking these questions because I wanted to lead it into a discussion, and I think we can make that hop now. Given that these players, movements aside, which it is partly because they're trying to unionize here, want to play football, and given that Nebraska had came out and straight up said, or was it Minnesota? One of them was like
Nebraska and Iowa.
Right, they just want to leave the conference to just play football. And in fact, there was a vote behind closed doors that may have been pretty close. Given all this, do you think we're going to be moving past the need for conferences? Is this whole pandemic showing us that the conference system is absolute nuts? It shouldn't be its own governing body that can single-handedly decide if they're playing football. This should be an NCAA decision. That's kind of what I'm thinking with the players, with the unionization, with the fact that teams and conferences aren't happy with what conferences are doing. Should we maybe be talking about the end of the conference system? You guys go.
Yeah, there's a talk there that you can have, but then you figure there's 180 something teams in college football right now, give or take a few teams. If you get rid of the conference-based structure, and not for the SEC, the ACC, all the Power 5 and the G5 schools, these other schools, you have Louisiana, Lafayette, and schools like that, it creates a very weird vacuum for the lower tier schools. So you have the Sun Belt, the MAC, all the WAC, all that stuff. They'll never be able to compete on the same level as an Alabama, Louisiana, any of those schools. LSU, not Louisiana. Louisiana's garbage. But with that, you almost have to create a tiered structure at that point, where you have, I've been watching a little soccer, turning into a little bit of a soccer guy. You like a tier 1 and then tier 2, and then the bottom tier 1 teams get relegated and the top tier 2 teams come up, and it turns into a whole big, mess of who's going where. So conferences are good for the structure that they bring, but that's about it.
Yeah, I guess there's also a lot of tradition too. I mean, you think about, and I think about the, I know. But you think about the SEC. I mean, going back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, like, I don't know. It just there's a pageantry about the game that just makes it so special. And also you think about teams in the WAC, teams in the Conf USA, teams in the Sun Belt. Yeah, those guys win a conference title game, like that's their objective. They're not making it to a playoff. They're not going to sniff the top 15. Maybe they will if they go undefeated. But they're going to be a 12-0 team like Boise State and TCU were way back, last in the past decade or so, and they're not going to get the respect that they deserve unless they do it 5-6 years in a row where they're at least an 11-win team, winning their conference title every time, scheduling non-conference top 10, top 15 opponents and beating them. And then it's like, we've been here. We're getting the recruits. We're winning these games. Let us into the club now, or at least give us a chance to make the playoff. But that's not going to happen. Unfortunately, I would love for it to happen. I love the chaos of that type of shit. But for a lot of these kids, a conference title is the last thing they'll ever fight for. Unfortunately, and they don't.
Conference title and the Champ Sports Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. So. There's definitely a great argument to be made to supersede the power structures that be within conferences, but I think the offsetting negatives, I think there's just a little bit too many for my taste, but there's obviously no proposal on the table for me to even dive into, so it's just all speculation.
Well, you guys bring up a good point there where these teams, the conference championship is all they have, and then maybe a Champs Bowl. Well, maybe it is time for a tiered NCAA. You had mentioned earlier that the Lafayettes aren't beating Alabama. Well, they never will. So why don't we be creative here? Let's make a league of like 50 college football teams. Competitive. I think it's something we could do. I don't think, teams like Lafayette should be playing Alabama to begin with. I don't know what the real benefit of that is right now. I understand the need for conference coordinating, in terms of schedules, in terms of regional recruiting. But I don't know. I just see the way this has been going right now, where we have the Power Five. 3 of them are in for the season. 2 of them are out. The players in the conference that is out wants to play. So instead of having the conference in and let the players opt out, which seems to be, the least oppressive way to do it. They're saying, no, you're just not playing, and we're not giving you an option to opt in or out. And then you have 3 other conferences that are allowing them, I assume, to opt out if they want. But the point is that it's on the table, and you got basically half the Power 5 divided. And it seems so frustrating as a college football fan that the conferences can do this, that the conferences can have a not a universal policy, right? You have a different policy for different people in a sport where we're all competing for the same thing. So I just thought that'd be an interesting conversation to bring up because I kind of see that becoming an issue. And the pandemic has done that for a lot of things in society, to be fair.
Yeah, it's almost like a federalism versus anti-federalism kind of argument, states' rights versus, governmental authority. So, and that's, type of shit that I love. And, I guess you could call me a studier or lover of history, government, all that type of shit. But so many positives, so many negatives. I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to remotely comprehend it unless we're sitting down with some of the greatest minds in the world, like literally get Adam Silver in the mix and start hashing out details like how can we make the most equitable and fair system that we can. Still giving lower tier, mid-tier teams, some skin in the game and something to work for, while also acknowledging that there's just clearly a large rift between, Alabama and Troy State University Trojans. So, I don't have the answer. That's why I'm, just going to embrace what we had previously and just hope that a fucking vaccine comes out as quickly as possible. But I relinquish my time because I have nothing else to add.
I have an idea. I'm gonna make a little visual. I'll post it to my account. Dylan, retweet it to Horseman Pod, at Horseman Pod, and I have an idea. It may take a couple of days for me to figure out how to visualize my idea, but it'll be coming at Horseman Pod. Let me know what you think when it comes out.
All right, mysterious. All right, let's go to this final section here before we sign off, because I think we're at a pretty good time for this podcast. Let's do the foolish thing of trying to attempt to predict what the hell's going to happen. I'm going to ask you guys, are we playing a season? When are we playing a season? What is the format? Who's involved? Just what do you think is going to happen? Whoever wants to go first, give it a shot.
There's not going to be a season. I've poured my glass of depression that there's not going to be a season. But I am optimistic that there will be a spring season. The spring season, Nick Saban came on the record saying it would be a JV season, which really got me going because Notre Dame has the best second string in the country. I would put Notre Dame second string and third string up against any other team in the nation. So if the first string players want to opt out to save their draft status or whatever, fine. If we're doing a JV season, let us do a JV season. I'll see you February 1st, February, March, and we'll play that season. Make it 8 games, make it 4 games, make it 2 games. I just want to see Notre Dame play. I don't care if it's in September or June. They're going to play a season. It's going to be some time, but I am not optimistic with how everything's going that it will be in the fall.
Less and less by the day am I being, especially with the news of the 80 cases today, shutting down the Notre Dame campus. And Notre Dame was at the forefront of being, pro-open, which I'm in support of. And what they shared with us is that there was 80 cases. I didn't read any further into it, so maybe I'm speaking out of pure ignorance. How many hospitalizations out of those 80?
They won't announce those numbers.
Yeah. So, is it just that, you had 80 people, 60 are asymptomatic, and 20 have a case of the sniffles? Is it, you had 80 people, 25 were hospitalized, and 10 or 15 are in some serious fucking trouble? I need some context to educate myself. Everything that I've seen up to this point is that basically if you're under the age of 45 and you're healthy, you're pretty much good, which makes me optimistic and makes me say, push forward, let the kids play, let's just get society back to normal, just because I'm desperate to. Obviously, everyone is. But I also don't want to see people hurt. I don't want to see them, what are the long-term effects on somebody's lungs with this bullshit? Offensive linemen, defensive linemen, heavier dudes by nature. That's going to put them at a little bit higher risk, and they're in the trenches smashing each other's faces for 60 straight minutes. So there's no perfect answer. I don't know. I want to see these guys start September 1st or the first weekend in September and just to attain some sort of normalcy. The NFL is going to try it, and hockey is doing a great job, obviously, albeit different circumstances in a bubble. I just don't know. I'm feeling less and less optimistic about it. I feel like it's probably going to push out towards a spring season. And I think by the time logistically that everything comes around, the NCAA has done such a terrible job of preparing and planning to get up to this point that I have zero confidence in them preparing and getting ready for the springtime. So it's feeling more and more like the momentum is turning towards a lost year of college football, tragically. So that's my take on it from what I got. Dylan, how about yourself, man?
Well, I think there's 3 countries in the world right now who has not gotten this under control yet: Russia, Brazil, and the United States of America. Given that that's still the situation, and given that we could be seeing a second wave, and given that half of the conferences are pretty much out already, I'm kind of forced to conclude that I think the fall's done. I don't know how this is going to work. I think there's going to be too many concerns about the legitimacy of the season. I hope things get better in terms of getting things under control. Obviously, it depends by which state you're in. But I don't think we're going to see a fall season, and I think we will see a spring one because the timeline of a vaccine looks to be somewhat hopeful for early 2021, which is nice. But that brings the question, do you want to see a spring college football season? P-Wagon said he wants to see Notre Dame play anytime, anywhere, in June. I would agree, but it'd be really weird come the fall, having nothing to do on Saturdays. And it's going to be even weirder in my circumstance. School's remote for the fall. So there's going to be absolutely no sense of normalcy in my life. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope we get college football. I don't know how it's going to be put under control and how it'll be organized in a way where it's worked out for like the NHL and the NBA, where they're in a bubble, right? They're in a bubble in a safe space, and everything's just working out smoothly. When you have, not only school, you're dealing with, kids. I say that as someone who's around that age, but younger people in a campus lifestyle across the country. I just don't know how it's going to work, and unfortunately, I'm not too optimistic about it.
How much space is up in none of it?
A lot of space.
Enough for at least 5 football fields?
You can probably put all the football fields in the world up there, and it wouldn't cover maybe a quarter of it. But if you want to come to Canada to do it in a bubble, there's less extreme environmental systems that would work well.
Just saying.
Yeah, how about they just go out into the middle of the desert in Texas?
But that wouldn't be a callback to one of our first seasons about none of it.
None of it is I'm very curious about it. Is it in permafrost? Do they experience like summer? But a summer for them would be 65 and partly sunny.
I would love that.
I don't know.
If we have
I haven't been there. They do have summer, and I'm not quite sure if it clears up. I think it might. Depends where you are too, because Nunavut is so big and so far north spanning that most of the population is actually kind of south-ish. So I don't know how far north, at what point, if it just stays snow and ice throughout the summer, I don't know. It's a place I'd love to visit. I don't know what 65 means Fahrenheit, because you're the only country in the world that still uses that. I'll have to do it.
I would say it's fair. It's moderate. Yeah.
You can golf.
I would say 65 is probably the last, the middle of October. Maybe towards the yeah.
Okay, I see. According to Google, that's about 18 degrees Celsius, which is a beautiful fucking temperature.
Okay. I don't know.
That would be a good summer.
Freezing cold, so
that'd be a good summer. I'll tell you what. Summer in Montreal right now has been what we'd call 30 degrees Celsius all summer, which is 86, and that's too hot. I don't like that.
I don't like that.
Our weather is too cold in the winter, and then our summers are too warm. It's bizarre living in parts of Canada.
And that was Talking Canadian.
Yeah, we got to bring that back. That's
and I guess the newest segment that we've discovered is conversion methods. And the only thing that I think is hilarious is when you'll see a tweet from the United Kingdom and they'll be like, scorching hot day of XYZ temperature of Celsius, and then I'll go to Google and convert it. It's 77 degrees Fahrenheit.
They had a slight breeze off the Thames. But it rained for 19 days before that.
The sun breaks through and everyone starts melting. Oh, God, I'm dying. Oh, it feels good to laugh because there's, like I mentioned, there's just so much pain and sadness going on right now in the world. If we could have any sort of smile and present a smile to our listeners in this stupid ass segment, please let us know. Tweet us, retweet us, share. We're gonna do a new thing because my friends are total dickheads and decided to put terrible reviews just to bust my balls. If you wanted to write a review, it has to be 5 stars. We will read your review on the podcast next time we have one, whenever that may be. And if it's rated 5 stars, you can roast the ever living shit out of me. And you could say as terrible of a words as you want. I don't care. I'm not offended by it. And so yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Be nice to me. I'm a fragile human.
Yeah, I'm out of thoughts. So I mean, I don't think I have any other sort of input, but unless Dylan or P Wagon, if you guys had any closing thoughts or anything you'd like to address before we get to closing thoughts, I'm going to let you guys have the floor here.
College football wise, I'm good. Just trying to live day by day. I ran a marathon recently, so that was a thing. Did that in about 8 hours over the course of 17 hours. There was a couple naps in between, but I am officially a marathon runner. So we have 1 out of 3 of us have run a marathon.
They don't ask how, they ask how many.
Just got it done. Hole in one in a marathon. So we're
nice.
Progressive here. Dylan?
How accomplished you guys are. Yeah, I think that's it. I think this is a good podcast. You guys hear me?
Yeah. Just have to talk a little bit louder.
A little bit louder. Okay. This good?
A little bit louder now. A little bit louder now. Hey.
All right, good job.
That was a shout reference.
That was a really good diversion while I was dealing with audio. Thank you, P.
You're
welcome. So basically, I would say our next podcast should just be callbacks where we do quizzes about countries and stuff. That was, if you guys remember that podcast at all. You guys had a competing quiz over questions on Canada. So maybe we'll have to reverse it next time and find a way to kill 30 minutes because there's nothing to talk about anymore with college football
We'll do the green card test for you. We'll give you an American green card.
Sadly, Dylan knows more about the United States Constitution and history than like a third of our fucking country.
Dylan versus Steve for a green card.
All right.
That's funny.
All I know is like hockey and lacrosse. So that's what I'll do is I'll try to study up and we'll have competing apply for citizenship tests in each other's nation.
That sounds like a great idea, actually. You guys, listeners, if you want to hear us quiz each other on to get a citizenship, just some pop culture and history and stuff, let us know. We could do a whole podcast on that, and P Wagon can be the judge. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Well, this was good, guys. Good talking to you. I'm glad everyone's okay. I assume you're okay. We didn't ask because we don't really care, but. No, everybody looks good. I hope all the listeners are good. Hopefully all their family as well. Thanks for listening. And by the way, in our last podcast, we had a question over or under the average of our previous 5 podcasts. And we're over the average. Our last episode did really well. So hopefully this one does well as well. And I will say that's about it. Till next time, guys, go Irish.
Go Irish.
Go Irish.